The thing that distinguishes slavery in Africa from Atlantic slavery is race. Europeans set in motion a system of slavery that was predicated on the idea that certain people were marked as enslavable. The first passage is from Europe to Africa. The middle passage is the journey from Africa to America. And then the third passage is the journey back from America to Europe.
¿Está todo bien?
Sí, todo bien.
Pode. Pode.
¿Cómo se puede? Juan Chiwan. Vamos a la papel.
We've learned a great deal about the Middle Passage in the last 40 years or so. The volume of the trade involved the removal of about 12.5 million people from the African continent. Historians have a hard time capturing what the Middle Passage must have felt like for enslaved men and women. It's a voyage that is deeply disorienting. It's a voyage to a place that you can't anticipate. You don't know what's going to happen to you. I don't think we have adequate words to capture that experience.
1841, New Orleans, ground zero for the slave trade.
How much?
It's auction day, the day every slave fears the most. In the first half of the 19th century, over 500,000 slaves are sold at auction. Since the cotton boom, the value of slaves has skyrocketed. Now men cost $1,000, women $800, children $500.
Take it, Topo.
90% of all African Americans are slaves. 4 million men, women, and children. Slaves are fattened for auction, like livestock. Dark-skinned men are bought for the fields, light-skinned women for the house. Buyers demand the most fertile slaves for breeding. The most expensive are light-skinned teenage virgins. Rape is common. Eliza's from Estate Plantation. She's being sold with her 2 children, Emily and Randall. In Louisiana, it's illegal for children under 11 to be taken from their parents.
Boy, come over here.
It happens all the time.
Sir, please. All right, you go over there. There's your business, Don't worry. Oh, my love.
Over half the sales at auction will tear a family apart. The war drags on. Lincoln is determined to end it and abolish slavery. In September 1862, he gives the South an ultimatum: rejoin the Union. He threatens to forcibly liberate their slaves if they refuse. But the South, having tasted independence, does not want to rejoin a union where slavery would be at risk. They reject the ultimatum. If the South won't free their slaves, he will do it himself.
For white Southerners, it was a confirmation that their thoughts about Lincoln all along, that he was, in fact, somebody who was bent on destroying what they thought was the Southern way of life.
On January 1st, 1863, Lincoln issues a proclamation abolishing slavery in the rebellious Southern states. General Robert E. Lee's Confederate Army is readying to launch a wide-ranging assault against Union forces in Virginia. Highly motivated, these men are fighting on their home turf and are ready to die for Southern independence, its traditions, and its rural way of life. Its prosperity is built around a simple crop: cotton. At Antietam in 1862, 6,000 are killed. 17,000 wounded. The carnage will trigger a revolution in battlefield medicine. Three-quarters of all operations conducted by Army surgeons during the Civil War are amputations. Letters from surgeon William Watson record what these battlefield ERs were like.
Day before yesterday, I performed 14 amputations without leaving the table. I do not exaggerate when I say I have performed, at the least calculation, 50 amputations. There are so many severely wounded through the joints. There are so many operations yet to be performed.
Surgeon Theodore Diamond describes the hideous wounds left by weapons like the mini-ball.
The shattering, splintering, and splitting of a long bone by the impact of the mini-ball is both remarkable and frightening.
An experienced surgeon can hack off a limb in just 10 minutes. Ether and chloroform are used as anesthetics. If a bullet doesn't kill you, then infection can. Gangrene is the greatest killer. Deprived of oxygen, wounds become an ideal breeding ground for Clostridium, a bacteria that releases a poisonous toxin, destroying tissue. Death can follow quickly. Approximately 60,000 amputations are performed during the Civil War, more than in any other war America has fought in. Twice as many soldiers die from infected wounds and disease as on the battlefield. This unprecedented carnage forces a complete rethink of traditional battlefield medicine. Looking after the well-being of soldiers becomes as central to the war effort as the supply of guns and ammunition. Large numbers of women sign up as battlefield nurses. One of them is Clara Barton. Clara Barton is untrained and unpaid. When she starts, most nurses are men. It is a menial occupation. The remedies she proposes for the care of the wounded are simple, but revolutionary in their effect. She insists the injured have a ready supply of clean bandages. First aid, the sorting of the wounded to put the most serious cases first. The Civil War brings in a series of innovations that form the basis of battlefield medicine to this day. 20,000 women sign on as nurses during the war. Clara Barton herself goes on to found the American Red Cross. Standards of hygiene begin to dramatically improve with the discovery of bromine. This caustic chemical is effective against the bacteria that cause gangrene. By the time of the North's final victory, over 600,000 men on both sides are dead, some 2% of the entire U.S. population. In current population terms, that's the equivalent of 6 million people. The fear of dying forgotten on the battlefield leads soldiers for the first time to begin pinning their names and units on their uniforms. These crude, early versions of the dog tag will make it possible to identify their bodies after they're killed. For the first time, America's growing postal service means soldiers can write to their loved ones from the front. With none of today's military censorship, it allows soldiers like Robert Stiles to relay the terrifying realities of life on the front line.
The sights and smells that assailed us were simply indescribable. Corpses swollen to twice their original size. Some of them actually burst asunder with the pressure of foul gases and vapors.
Fueling this carnage lies the deep political animosity that has led to this war. In a bitter conflict that has pitted brother against brother, the South is determined to defend its independence and its system of slavery. But the North will not allow it to leave the Union of States.